I'd like to reconvene the 2024 Strategic Planning Session of the Johnston County Board of Commissioners. Welcome everyone back today, and those who are watching on live stream on our YouTube channel, welcome back as well. Wanted to thank everyone for their participation yesterday. Thanks to the NCACC for their leadership and facilitating the things that are going on, and those who presented to us yesterday to help us move on our way. It was good to see the things that we had accomplished. Sometimes in the midst of it, I think we lose sight of the things that we've actually accomplished. We're so focused on moving things ahead, but it is good to be able to look back, and I think we were able to make that transition and turn and start looking forward. And I think today is where we'll look forward and maybe provide some clarity for our staff on the things that we want to accomplish in 24, 25. With that, I want to say we have a special guest today, my mayor and someone I served with on the Town of Clayton Council for 10 years, my last 10 years there. We are fortunate to have Mayor Jody McLeod Clayton here to speak to us. So Jody, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Am I good to stand right here?
Could you come up?
Sure. No. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. And it's an honor to be able to say welcome to Clayton. We're glad y'all are here. We're glad you're able to come and utilize this old elementary school that was so tore up and dilapidated until we had a partnership and agreement to turn it into something and really to take what was old and make it new again. It's a big, vital part of our community. It's a big, vital part of our county. Thank you so much for your leadership and the good work that you do for all of us in Johnston County. Town of Clayton will be doing strategic planning next week. We're going to be in New Bern for 3 days. And oftentimes I think the public has a little bit of a misconception about what retreat is all about, and it really isn't about going off and having a good time. What it really is about is planning seriously for a future and getting positive outcomes for the citizens and the folks that we represent. So it's a lot of hard work. It's intense. When you leave, you're tired at the end of the day. So wish you well. We thank you again for all you do for all of us, every municipality, every member of Johnston County citizenry, all of us. So we're glad you're here. We appreciate the good work all of you do. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. It's a privilege.
Thank you. All right, we will proceed on with business, and we have today leading our discussion Neil Emery and Amy Cannon with North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. They were here yesterday, and so I'll turn it over to them to pick up and move forward.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good to be back. Good to have Amy with me. I had an Amy yesterday, now I have another Amy today.
Makes it easy for you.
I'm getting old, so it's hard for me to remember. Our intent today is, as you know, we zeroed in on the 3 major topics that listed on this board, but and then what we hope to do is go through those and go through the items noted. Some may be getting detail, some may not, but when we do get into detail, to actually develop a position from the board's perspective and maybe set some target, even dates or whatever, when things you'd like to achieve and how you'd like to achieve them, and any direction you may want to give to the staff in those. So we want to leave here, I guess, with all that said, sort of a game plan of where you want to go for the year. And that's our intent today. And so please help keep us on task, and we'll do the same, and to make sure you get the product you want and the results out of this. Financial stewardship, we had a good day yesterday talking about where you're at financially and how blessed you are as a board and how the stewardship of the county has led to that. And now it's a matter of how do you take those resources and invest them, and how do you proceed from here after your financial Davenport's report yesterday. So I'm going to throw out there the first topic, maybe at the top of the list in that regard, being your fund balance. We talked some about the policy that you have in place now. I believe it's 20%. And where do you go from that as a board in your fund balance? I don't think your goal is going to be 73%, but where is it time to revisit the issue of fund balance and your percentage of fund balance that you want as a policy? I know that, I think you mentioned a lot of counties with AAA are somewhere in the 30, 35 area. So I just open that for the first topic, let's talk about fund balance, and is that something the board wants to address? And if so, feelings from individual board members regarding that.
Commissioner Smith?
Yeah. I think it's premature to deal with that today. I think there, number one, we've got a lot of things on our plate to make this county a better place. And we've got to see how that's going to line up. Once we see that, then we'll get to the budget, and by then we'll have more information. We'll have a couple of more months under our belt and see if the fund balance held. And I think, as I spoke last year, if the fund balance, after we look at what we need to do, and after we look at where we are, if we're anywhere close to where we are, then I think we'll do what we did last year, which is look at what the rate needs to be. But that'll be, I think, a part of our budget process.
Others?
I'll just say, last year, we had a discussion about this, and we were looking, not changing I think the 20%, keeping that, but moving towards a 40 to 50% fund balance over time. So I think, and as Commissioner Smith had mentioned yesterday, we get a chance once a year to do that. So I think that, and I haven't heard any other discussion, but we'll let the other commissioners speak, but I think that, we were looking towards that 40 to 50% over time without anything definite, but I'm still fine moving in that direction over time.
I know there's a lot of citizens out there that are keenly interested. Some don't pay attention to it, but there's a few that wants to see this specific thing happen or that specific thing happen. Some of the municipalities as well, and they say, well, you're sitting on a lot of money, why can't you do that? So, but I understand where he's coming from. We've got a lot of things that we need to catch up on. Capital expenditures for various things, non-school related, as well as ongoing obligations there. So I think you're going to see it coming down as to when we earmark it and start taking it down as these things fall in place, I guess.
I think it's really important that we decide whose money is that? Whose money is that? It's not the city's money, and it's not what people wants money. It's the taxpayers' money. They gave it to us to be good stewards of it. They gave it to us, trusting us that we would use it for the purpose for which they gave it to us. And I think as long as, and I think we honored that last year when we cut the tax rate 4 cents. And we just need to look and see what is on our plate that we believe the citizens want us to do. And after we answer that question, we'll say, what's our fund balance look like now? And what do we need to do to get it in a proper relationship? If I was a gambling man, some may say I am, I would say we're going to cut the rate some this year. How much? I don't know.
Well, we have a lot of in-progress things going now. We've started, it's going to take a lot of that fund balance down. We start doing our debt servicing for the school bonds and whatever. It's going to take a big nick of it. So, I'm like Commissioner Smith. We need to look at it and see and discuss it when we got all the data in front of them.
Chad and I talked about this yesterday. Do you know we issued $30 million in school bonds last year? You know what made that payment? The whole payment on the whole $30 million was paid on the interest that we earned on our fund balance. We didn't have to take anybody's taxes. It was the interest we earned on our fund balance, paid that whole $30 million debt service and had some left over.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just add that I agree with everything that's been said. I think it's premature to try to do it now. Once we start later and in these projects, we identify where we need to go, then as a board, I think we can look at, I think everyone agrees that the fund balance does need to be addressed. But I think until we start layering in the debt service on these future projects that we've been talking for so long about, I just think it's premature to try to sit here and do a number now and then get ourselves in a financial challenge.
I agree, and I feel like with what we're doing today and moving forward, we're kind of going to back into that number and know what it needs to be once we go through this exercise and really put pen to paper.
But I want to say this, you know, the bonds that we issued had approved to be issued in '22. It's taken 24 and 25 and 26 before they come online. The projects we're talking about, they're not going to come online. There'll be no debt service on those projects for another 2 or 3 years. And as we've talked about, we've got to adjust the millage rate and the tax rate this year on the facts we have this year, with the understanding we can adjust it in the future. So I don't think that the future projects are going to play that big a deal in this year.
Well, it's all good comments, and I appreciate it, and I got to make it interesting because I'm going to have a different opinion. Even though you're saying kick the can down the road, I still think we ought to have a percentage somewhere so you'll know what you're going to do. If you make no decisions, okay, what is our fund balance going to be? 20, 30, 40%. Then you got the cushion above that to work. You can't do it the other way around.
Yeah, well, I'm not doing it, I don't know why you go there. Well, I don't think I said anything contrary to that. I think Butch accurately reflected what we said last year. We said last year we want the fund balance to be between 40 and 50%. That's all I said. And what I said is that and I started off by saying we got to take what we want to do in the future and be ready to do it. But the debt service on that and the actions on that are going to be 2 or 3 years down the road. Because even if we said, okay, if we went to an architect and said, start drawing the plans now, went out and bid it and all that, it's just like the school system. It takes them 2 or 3 years before they get anything done. And we have the option, 2 or 3 years now, to adjust our tax rate to meet whatever we need to do there, holding on that our goal is to have a fund balance of 40 to 50%. That was all I said.
No, I understand that. I wasn't dictating that. I'm simply saying, even though we made that comment a year ago that we wanted 40, 50, we're still at 73 a year later. And so, you know, are we going to be at the same place next year?
Well, and I said this, and I say this with great love and affection. As long as Rick Hester is our manager, he's going to be conservative. That is just it's in his DNA, and we're going to come in better than what the budget is. I mean, it's happened every year. You know, if something happens about every time, and Einstein says if you're going to change, you can't keep doing the same thing and have a change. Well, we keep doing the same thing, and I'm not necessarily against that, but I think we also I'm for being conservative. The reason I have this magnolia tree right here is called evergreen. It's to remind our company we need to be evergreen, which means to have cash in all seasons, good seasons and bad seasons. That's what we talk about all the time, and we need to do that as a county. But I want to always go back that after we do that, our main duty is to be a good steward to the taxpayer and not take any more of their money than what we need to do to get the job done. And I think we honored that duty with what we did this year, and I'm very proud of that this board did that. We met all the county's needs, and we gave the taxpayer a pretty nice reduction. And I think that with the growth that we continue to have in our tax base, I think that's what allowed us to do that. And that's what will allow us to do it again this year, I believe.
I agree with you. You know, county manager and I have had many conversations about, okay, don't come in here now with a 15 million excess this next year when we doing our budget, but he's very conservative and he's a great county manager. I'm not picking on him either. I'm just simply saying, if this is a strategic planning session, okay, are we just going to continue to just say we've got to wait on this CIP or we got to wait on other things? And that's all, and I'm good with whatever they decide. That's just my 2 cents worth.
I know that last year you did talk about the 40 or 50, but I get a sense that the board just wants to leave it at 20 and wait.
Yeah, and I think the policy was going to stay at 20, but the target would be that 40 to 50%. Yeah, I don't recall any discussion on moving off the 20 in case we have a repeat of.
Well, wait a minute now. We're now a AAA county. We'd like to stay that way. I don't see anything wrong. I mean, I know where we're at, but I don't see anything wrong with addressing that policy. Everybody has stated it's antiquated and outdated. Why don't we move it to 30% and make it official? That's in line with most of the AAA counties.
Yeah, I was trying to think Kyle's presentation yesterday. I know he mentioned some
Said
others.
30 to 35.
Yeah, but was that a policy change? I know he recommended
Nah,
a
he didn't.
specific
That
policy
wasn't
change on
policy
something.
change, that's just where.
Yeah, most
of the
AAA's
counties
rest.
are.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, and I think, I don't, if it's working pretty good, I'd hate to change what we got.
And that was one of the rating agencies. The other rating agency was 15 to 20%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of what this board's comfortable with. I think anywhere from an official policy in the 20 to 30% range, if you go 25% would be okay. And then you could have an unofficial policy, an unofficial number that you want to try to meet, which was, if it's 40 to 50%, that's what we'll work towards in everything we do.
Yeah, the only other item I would throw out there is if you have a citizen say you got a policy of 20 and you're sitting at 73.
Yeah.
Which one is it?
Well, I think we have an obligation to spend the taxpayers' money just as frugally as they spend it. We allowed them to keep it. And I think that if we're not here because we plan to be here, we're here because we're a growing county. And you don't have a finite control on what taxes are collected or how they're collected or what projects finish ahead of schedule and get on the tax books quicker. There's a lot of factors we got to consider when we look at this. So I'm saying that we've got a lot of projects that's going to bring that fund balance down. We don't need to act too fast without giving a lot of thought, looking at all the data, all the projections, what we're going to really do. And I'd hate mighty bad to spend it down and then not be able to come through with some of the projects that we desperately need now.
Unless I remember, maybe we leave it at 20, but that's not a target rate. That was a minimum rate. We want to stay above that number.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
and maybe that's what we say to the citizens, it's not our target rate, that's our minimum rate. When times get bad, we want to start trimming everything and not go below that rate, that figure.
And that may be something you want to state in it, because, most of the time, if you're on the manager side of your board's telling you, I want to be in this range, right in here, about
Yeah,
20.
so I think that as we move forward with, and have discussions with Davenport, is maybe that's a line, we show the policy, minimum, we want to say minimum policy and target,
Yeah.
and show that on the graphic so that that it's clear that we have something that we're definitely not going to drop below, but we have other we want to maintain in a certain range. Because I think he was pretty specific on, I can't remember what it was exactly, he wanted us to change from 4 to 3% or consider changing an adjustment, but he didn't say anything specific about a policy adjustment on fund balance.
That was debt to assessed value.
Okay.
And because I think he was more comfortable going from 4 to 3 because our assessed value keeps going up.
Right.
And so that was one that he said you probably could come down a little bit on. I guess the only one that I'd want to monitor a little bit is the debt to expenditures. But yeah, as far as the fund balance policy, we could definitely have to keep the official if that's what you'd like, and then we could go out there and anytime we talk about it, we could talk about the unofficial sort of number we're going to try to meet. And sort of the 20% is the is the bottom number that we're going to try in case, when times are tough.
And the only other side I'd give to this is, from the association standpoint, one of the challenges we always had going to the General Assembly and asking for the General Assembly to fund certain things is we always get that feedback. Well, there's some counties storing money. You know, how are we going to give them money and they've got a fund balance of X, Y, Z? So it's just something else. I'm talking about from the statewide.
Right.
You know, that gets thrown up a lot from the General Assembly. If county's got enough money to put in fund balance, why do we need to fund X, Y, Z?
Yeah, and we hear that sometimes when we go to talk to our local delegation about fund balance as well, so.
If I might, just one more thing. As we move down the road and y'all are discussing projects, one of the things that we can do to affect fund balance a little bit to give us a little bit more truer picture is in some of the budgets that come up, there could be some discussion about the board appropriating money to a capital project fund to get it out of the general fund into a capital project fund as sort of seed money to help for some of these projects that I know you're trying to plan for. It may draw down some of the fund balance to kind of a little bit so it's not so high, and put it into a capital project fund to help as seed money for some of these other projects you got coming up. So that could be a consideration as well.
I would just say this. It's going great. I don't know why we're talking about change just for change purposes. I just think we need to continue. We're a growing county. We know why we have the fund balance. It came from our increasing tax base. And we were true to the taxpayer last year when we cut the taxes 4 cents. And that after you look at what you need to meet the taxpayer's needs, the solution to the fund balance is to cut your tax rate. And I'm sure we'll have a robust discussion about that this year like we did last year.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I want to go back to what Chad just said. That's an excellent thought. I've seen, and this has worked well in other communities, where you establish either a capital project fund or a capital investment fund. And those funds are set aside for pay-go for capital projects or for future debt service. And to take it a step further, if the board at some point in the future wants to build a policy, because Johnston County is so conservative, you could set up ongoing transfers if you're above that fund balance threshold, whatever it is, and send it to the capital investment fund. And that could really be your vehicle for planning your projects and debt service today and in the future. And then you get a clearer picture in your general fund of what your fund balance is. And so you're really setting aside, it's long-term planning for all of those projects so that you don't have to increase the tax rate in the future.
Good point.
Yeah, good point, Amy, and I agree with you 100% because, you know, I think Chad and Rick have a good understanding basically what might be what we used to call encumbered in that particular 73%. So how much of that is already that you foresee or whatever that is encumbered that we're going to spend? Then we have how much money we got actually is realistically 73%.
So you really, from that perspective, you have your operating fund and the general fund as a true operating fund, and you deal with your debt service and your capital over here.
Any other
Have we beaten
comments,
this one down?
questions?
So we
I don't think the horse is all the way dead, but we'll let it live a
we'll
little
let it,
longer.
we'll let it, we'll let
As he
it
said,
stay
when
in
we
the
get the
barn
budget,
till
when we get the
next
budget,
year.
yeah, we get it budget time, we'll
Okay.
we'll have some, as he said, robust discussions.
Be here before we know it.
Yes.
The,
It is here.
And that was sort of lend into the second part of this, the stewardship, and we talked a lot about the capital improvement plan yesterday, and I just want to begin there by getting a sense from each of you, your perspective on that, and seeing the need for that. and then maybe give some direction to staff how to proceed on that. And I don't know how, Mr. Chairman, you want to start that conversation, but if you want to start from your perspective, and then we can just.
Could you repeat that again? That was a lot.
Just the capital improvement, the
So-
concept of it and what it, we talked about, should it be just county?
Okay, it's come back to me now.
Okay,
It's come
I
back to me
got
now. I was having a senior moment there. I really feel like we are there. I mean, I think we have all the pieces. We've talked about it. We've talked about the projects we want. We've looked at estimates of what it's going to cost. We've looked at what that would be in our financial analysis impacts. So I think we don't have a document. We've had it in all the places. So I think that we are well on our way there. It's just a matter of getting with staff and saying, when can we get this thing put together as soon as possible so we can have it. But I think I feel like we're there. I may be the only one that feels that way, but I feel like we're really, I'm gonna put a percentage on it, but we're most of the way there on it. It's just a matter of getting it to the finish line, so. And
Has there been a formal process for that, or is it just?
Well, I would agree with the chairman. Like I said yesterday, we're in the execution phase. We just need to execute. We keep beating this over and over and over again. Everybody knows what it is. We just got to get her done. And, we got to build some facilities for the county. We got to fund the school system and the water and sewer. We got to fund that. I mean, I don't know how you say any more about it. We know what it is. We just got to get it done.
yeah, and I'll look to staff for some sort of time frame, but sooner than later. But I don't want to say a month and have that not be possible. But you don't have to answer right now if you need to think about it a little more. But I would say sooner rather than later. Thinking from my perspective, it's an easy thing to do, but that may not be as easy as I think it is.
Let me remind everybody, to do what we need to do, there were certain things that had to happen.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that had to happen, we needed to do something else which we couldn't do until something happened. Something happened last week or this week. We're now in the position of where we can maybe put the final piece in place. And once we get the final piece in place, which we need to have to move to do the final planning. So it's just, I know we're all impatient, but I think there's a order in which it has to go. We just need to get it done. And I think staff is going as fast as they can. I think, I celebrated the fact that we got the last signatures this week and need to move on, get that last piece put in place, and then we can go.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, everyone has a clear vision of where we're going, and I just don't know that we can get there any faster than the way we've been getting there, just because things had to fall into place to make that happen. And so nobody wants it any faster than I do, but I think we all just have to be patient and continue the process till we get done. I think we'll start seeing a lot happen now in the weeks to come. So I think we're in a good spot there. We just need to execute it.
Help me, I don't know what y'all talking about something came together and now it's time to go and.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so before we stumble into it, we'll let our attorney keep us out of trouble. How about that?
Well, it is public record, so one of the things that we have been working on is the acquisition of property. And so we have been, we closed on a piece of property not too terribly long ago. That was across the street from the detention center. We identified additional property, and we hope to have an option to purchase additional property approved by the board on Monday. And so those things needed to come together in order for us to truly have this master plan concept that has been discussed by the board for the past, we talked about it last year at the work session, and we have worked really hard to try to get all of the pieces in play. And of course, sometimes things take longer than what one would hope, but we have put ourselves in a position in which we have some opportunity to really bring that plan from last year to fruition. So that's
Okay.
where we are in the process. And so there's obviously a lot of work that needs to be done from point A to point B, from a due diligence perspective and that sort of thing. But if history is consistent with this piece of property as it was with the other property, I anticipate that it should all come together timely. Is that fair, Chad?
Yeah, I think just from our perspective, I think that we've heard the board mention master plan, and I think now that some of these pieces have fell into place, I think we're going to get started on that. Is what I've heard from the board as a whole. What I really want to know in some ways, Rick can throw the magic marker at me if he wants to, but is there anything coinciding to the master plan that you want us to be planning for, like design on a building while we're doing the master plan, or you want to have the master plan first and then do something? Do we need to do something consecutive to a master plan as we move forward over the next few weeks, now that things are kind of falling in place? And then what's the board's feeling
Chad,
on that?
we had that discussion, and the board instructed staff, until we get the land, and we know what land we're gonna have, we don't need to be designing any buildings until we
Okay.
get the master plan in place.
Okay.
We had that discussion.
All right.
To help me be clear on it, we've talked about the capital improvement plan, and Davenport talked about the importance of that. But then to a side, you've got a master plan, which is on a site.
Yes.
So you got two pieces.
Yes.
So I'm hearing you want to do the master plan, but the master plan would be
So the master-
incorporated into the CIP.
So I think we've got to look at it like a funnel. So the master plan, when we talk about the master plan, that's the CIP for county facilities, okay? And then, of course, you will master plan a site, but that will come after you figure out those county facilities and that sort of thing. And we've had a needs assessment that was done a few years ago. That's going to be updated. That's, those kinds of things are occurring. But I think that's the way to look at it, is that the board wants to see county facilities globally, and then we will master plan that site based upon needs. Did I understand the
think-
board's instruction
Yeah.
correctly?
Yep.
I think a lot of this stuff we need to take care of in closed session. I think we beat this up about enough.
Is there a document now that if somebody says, I need to know the long-term needs of Johnston County capital-wise, facility-wise, they can go to a piece of paper somewhere that tells them what that is and what year it's targeted?
There is not a formally adopted
Okay.
CIP.
And that's what I heard a CIP is.
Yeah.
But is that something y'all are going to pursue, or is that something, again, y'all want to just hold on?
I think we can work through it with the master plan process at the site. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think to me, they're so intertwined that I won't say they're just not exactly the same thing, but they're pretty darn close to being the same thing at this point. Now, over time, it may expand, but I think right now that they're one and the same.
Okay. So the CIP's on hold?
No. No, it is, yeah, simultaneous, it is the same. So they're both moving forward at the same, simultaneously, yeah.
Okay.
As we work on the site, that right now pretty much encompasses all the other things.
Is there a
There
formal
may be some parks and rec
process
things.
to adopt that, or is it somebody,
I'm assuming we'll do it just like our utility CIP, that it will come to us and we will approve the formal CIP.
So I think it would be fair to say that it's a work in progress. And we legally, in order to do the site planning, we've got to go through the request for qualifications process and all of those kinds of things. And so that, obviously, you can't master plan a site without having property. And so we staff have a plan to bring that forward, and as we look at this site, we will be simultaneously looking at all county facilities. So I feel like they will be congruent as we're working this process together.
Okay.
And so there will be a time in which it is formally adopted, but we've got to assess first, and then we will be in a position to make recommendations.
Okay. Because I think my vision is y'all talking about master planning. I mean, the capital improvement plans where I can look 5 years from now and say, we're going to have to put a new roof on X, Y, Z on the courthouse. And I know that's coming, and I plan for it.
And that needs assessment has been done, but the capital improvement plan with the needs assessment has not come together yet.
Okay.
We're in that process.
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything on this before we move on to the next?
If I were an observer looking in, I think y'all are making this way too complicated.
That's why I think I wasn't wanting to move on. Yeah. That's why I'm wanting to move on. Yeah. All right, well, let's move on then.
Okay. I think we touched upon yesterday the fire matrix. If we can go back to that first list. Move right along here. I think the solid waste is one that I think we'll just skip through that one and go on to, in financial stewardship, we talked about education quite a bit. And one of the things, a couple of things was just moving forward on current expense, but also the incorporation of the new legislation with charter schools and the fund and the aspect there, and how to plan for those with the Board of Education, which you seem to have a good relationship with. Just what's important there and the board's perspective on that moving forward. So first, in regards to just current expense of the school system and what's involved there. Plus their capital needs, of course. Thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say on that one, I mean, I know the school board hasn't brought anything to us yet on either their operational needs or their capital needs at this point. I know they're working on it. We've had some conversations in general, but they haven't brought in, so I don't know if there's anything specific to talk about now because we don't know what their plans are. Like I said, they had their meeting Tuesday. There was some general information in there, and they was talking about the ESSER money that is no longer going to be there, and it seemed like they had things well under control. They didn't fund any continuing cost out of that, so I think they're going to be in good shape there, but I don't know that we have a lot on there to talk about. You had charter schools up there. That is a new wrinkle that, right now as of May, we've had one charter school come to us and make a request. So I think that is a new wrinkle that we've got to consider, going forward, what it is we do there. Maybe other commissioners have more thoughts on the schools, but I think right now we're probably a month early. If we had it in March, I think we'd have some information to talk about on the schools, but since we're meeting in February this year, we're a little bit ahead of getting information from the school system.
I was just getting ready to say that. I think to echo what Mr. Smith said earlier is we're just a little premature on this right now. I just wanted to make sure I brought it up so that, people know that we are discussing it and as a board, and that it's definitely, top priority for us, but we need the additional information to make decisions as a board. But just to know that it is in our plan and it is a priority for us.
They've already told us a tentative plan about adding classrooms to Cleveland High School, I believe it was. Have they indicated any time frame of when that would be solidified?
I'm not sure. I know that was on the plan that ORED presented to them, so I'm assuming that will be coming to us as part of any capital needs that they have on that. But again, I think what I saw on the ORED presentation was 2 elementary schools that they recommended, Cleveland High School expansion, and then some, for lack of a better term, redistricting of middle schools to level out that. So I don't know what other, I know there's been some earlier discussion about Clayton High School and some needs there. and some general countywide needs for some large maintenance projects, the chillers and stuff in the 10 million plus range on those. So a lot of things in general, but I don't think anything specific at this point. And Commissioner Harris has had some conversations, but I think I've touched on everything there.
Yeah, that's, you're 100% correct. I mean, there's just a lot of back and forth discussion on what the options would be. They are trying to research this thing and have a thoughtful approach to how to move forward and do it in a responsible way. The Cleveland project, I think they would love to do it tomorrow if they could. But I think that's going to stem back to how this board chooses to fund that, if it's something that's going to be part of a bond referendum or if it's some other option that we can discuss. And I think they would love to go ahead and get started with that project. And then, there's been no official determination from their board of what a bond's going to look like, what the request is going to look like going forward. We're just waiting to hear how that's all going to work out.
The referendum that was accomplished a couple of years ago, when is the next sale? I mean, what's the process of unfolding that money?
Yes, sir. You're speaking of 177 million from schools. So 30 million was sold earlier, and that was the AAA rating. And the remaining is sold. Martha does a great job working very closely with the school system about when it's time to sell. There are some times when the county might front a little bit, maybe design of stuff and delay a sale, but everything that's done is working in concert with the school system. So I imagine there'll be another sale in the next 6 to 9 months, would you, roughly?
Was that bond money already encumbered, or is it for items like this Cleveland expansion?
Talking about the voter-approved money, yeah, it's already, ready to go. And at that point, we'll go back to the rating agencies again, and they'll rate those bonds as well.
But to answer Ted's question, it's encumbered and earmarked for a specific project.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not available for general stuff.
Yeah, there was a specific set of projects that were
Right.
outlined for the voters to have the information to vote on the bond. So, yeah.
I may have misunderstood your question, I'm
No,
sorry.
is that different than what they're talking about now? The
Yes.
needs coming up?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a different set of needs.
I got you.
I know one topic that came up yesterday was getting a judge on how much their growth in their school system. Y'all comfortable with that now, having a good number of their ADM and?
Well, I think we had asked Rick to take a look at the ORAD numbers historically and see where I know before there was a very tight percentage that I had been told that they had predicted within that made me question that was way too accurate a number to be predicting something 5 years out or 10 years out. So, but yeah, I think once we get those numbers coupled with, the numbers that Denise provided yesterday on the growth, I think it'll be an interesting comparison. And at least in my mind, I saw what she was saying, the gap where the young children are, and I can't remember the exact ages, but with them looking at 2 elementary schools, it just, those numbers didn't jive, and maybe something I need to dive in deeper on. Yeah.
Yeah, we need correlation there to see how it works together.
Okay.
And our staff will continuously work with the school staff to look at, we look at our budget to actual numbers every year, and we look at our, we give our cash flows to you guys. We do the same thing with the schools, and they're very transparent about giving us their projected budget to see what it's actually costing them from a current expense side to run their operation. So we'll stay in contact with them.
What I talked to Rick about yesterday, we have auditors who come in and audit our books and stuff like that. We need, I believe, to have something other than what the school board tells us. We need to have some independent analysis that we do on what the ORAD projection is and what actually happened. We need to do our own homework and not totally rely on what the school board tells us. Because the way, as I understand it, the way that North Carolina set this system up, it's the school board's duty It's like negotiating. It's their duty to come get all the money we'll give them and to make a case for all the money they can get. And they're just doing their job. I don't have a problem with the school board coming in with an overly optimistic request for money. They're just doing their job. It's our job, and the way it's set up is that's just the first request. We then have a duty to the taxpayers to say, what do the taxpayers want to fund? We need to have our own data so we can represent the taxpayer to determine the negotiations with the school board about what we believe the taxpayer wants built and funded. And that is designed to be a conflict. It's designed to, there is conflict there that's designed to be there because there's differences of opinion sometimes about what we'd like to have versus what's needed. And I mean, that's a universal conflict, and that's what we have with the school board. And we just need to do our own homework.
From a current expense side, we look at their audit.
I know you do. I think
So,
you do a great
yeah,
job with that.
We look at their audit, their budget, to know what they actually, now on the ORED side, I
Yeah,
don't disagree with
I
them.
think on the operational side, I feel like we get good data. I feel
Yeah.
like you're right on that. I just think from a projection, we're talking about projections of what the future needs are gonna be for brick and mortar. And that's determined by how many seats we have now that are not occupied, plus what we project the new needs to be. And they are not aligned, I can tell you that. They're not, what the school board says and what actually happens is not aligned. And we need to do our own homework so we can make the best judgment for the taxpayers who gives us these funds to be good stewards of.
Other topics on financial stability and,
Well, did we come to
What's
any,
there?
did we come to any conclusion about this request from the charter school? That's a new one for us.
I would, other than the request, I mean, we haven't had any discussions on funding that, and I think that'll be, you know, as we get into budget discussions, we have that request on the table so that we can address it during budget discussions.
And certainly on that particular issue, Chad, Martha, and I would like the opportunity to study the statute because there's some interesting language about promissory notes and this, that, and the other, and we want to make sure that we understand exactly what would be entailed if the board did make an appropriation. So we need a little more time to study that statute so we can make appropriate recommendations as to how it can be done if that's the situation in which we find ourselves. And Neil, I know that if I understand correctly, there is one county that has made a charter school appropriation, Bladen, I think I heard, and I'm not sure exactly how it was done and all of those sorts of things under the statute, but that is something that we need to educate ourselves on a little bit more before we make a recommendation as to how you move forward.
And who owns the building?
Well, I think that has something to do with this concept of promissory notes and everything else. And so that's one of the things from an action item that Martha and I actually just talked about this morning. We want to study it a little bit more.
This is the only school, right, in Johnston County that is 501(c). Rest of them are for-profit.
I don't know that as a fact. I'm not sure. I believe that's what was presented to us, but we've not received any other requests from any other charter school. I've not looked.
One question I have to follow up with Jennifer is for any potential capital investment by the Board of Commissioners for charter schools, would that also be a part of a referendum, or would that be a straight line financing and that type of thing? So that's another thing I think we can look at.
And I would just say that as far as the request from the charter school, it's not unique in the ownership because we went through a very similar process on Advanced Manufacturing Center in Four Oaks, as, you know, who was going to own the building. So it's not unique discussion to charter schools on that. So it's just another point we need to get clarified.
Yeah, and the statute's going to require that we adopt a resolution related to an appropriation for charter school funding. And so we will, if that's the direction that the board chooses to go, we'll have everything the way that it needs to be. We just, for me at least, I can't speak for everybody else, the request was new and different because it's the first one we've gotten, and the statute's so new. So we just want to have the opportunity to study it up and get it right if that's the direction that you decide to go.
I think a lot of counties' debate now is it just authorizes you to do it. It's up to the county board whether you do it. And they're having these philosophical debates about, is that something we want to do or not? Because some counties have got a bunch of charter schools, so they're facing major funding.
Yeah, and I think just from my perspective, having that information ready for it, rather than wait till we get in discussion, and just get that information together so we'll have it, and when we start a discussion, we'll know I'm gonna say answers to the questions.
That's one of those you may let other people test the waters and see what comes back, because it's unique. Of course, the counties have been doing it in other ways for some time, I know, assisting charter schools in other ways. So. Anything else on that? If y'all want, you want to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about utilities?
Okay, we take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back at 5 after 10. All right, thanks. All right, a little longer break than planned, but we are back. And Neil, I'll turn it back over to you. I think we were getting ready to talk about utilities.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had some conversation yesterday about the regionalization and of utilities and how working together and developing a plan, how that might look. Talked about it from two perspectives, one about countywide and then maybe initial. I know we had heard some about how the rapport with the towns is going well and the conversations are going well at this point, and then time invested in that. But now I wanted to spend some time on a conversation about, in more detail, what the perspective of the board is and what should be the next steps and thoughts moving forward, and just overall objectives in this.
And I will kind of start from where we've been. Like I said, we've had discussions for several months with all the towns, and actually have the Central Pines Regional Council facilitating discussions on what some sort of governing body may look like in the different levels of interest of the different towns, things like that that are going on. And everything seems to be moving towards a good collaboration and moving towards that. What that looks like in the end, we don't know what that's going to look like yet. But the other piece is we have our second phase of a regionalization study that the county funded that also involves looking at the towns and the assets they have and the financial piece of it. And I think that's going to be ready to present us in March, which is only a month away. As I said, like it's a long time away, but it'll be ready for us to have something to look at in March on that. But the piece I think that we don't have now, and it may involve staff, well, I'll say it will involve staff, is looking outside. And I know we've had discussions at an elected official level and manager level with Harnett County. And I think there's a lot to figure out with the interbasin transfer rules as they are today. I think between Harnett County and Dunn, there's probably plenty of water to be had, but the situation is, to get the water, you gotta send the sewer back to the Cape Fear. And I think that's probably the thing that, at least in my mind, that we need to take a hard look at. We have a CIP that we see every year. Staff does a great job with that, and we're I won't say chipping away at that. Some chips are really large chips. We've got a huge Lower Noose facility we're looking at for water facility, and that is a huge. I think has a B in it when that thing would be completed. So a very large project there to secure our water supply for Johnston County in, I think, to 2050. If Chandra stands up and says no, then we'll do that. But I think it's 2050. Okay, yeah. Or she throws something at me, then she hits Patrick or Tony. Maybe Tony. I don't know. But so I think we are planning for the future. And as I said yesterday, I mean, we have interlocal agreements. I can't remember if it was 7 or 9 entities that we're looking at almost 25 million gallons a day that we have access to. We're going to go to 18 at our own facility. So I think we are, I hate to say good, because we got a lot of work to do at the rate we're growing. But I think the piece, and I say it's missing because it's not really missing with all the interlocal agreements we have, but the piece is, how can we work into the Cape Fear piece and team with, in my mind, Harnett County. How can we work with them? And I think elected officials, we can only take that so far when the reality of the technical side hits and the cost hit, and that's where, we need staff to take a look at that and kind of figure out what that looks like and how feasible that is, because I'm sure there are things in my mind that I think is simple that are very complex and maybe deal breakers. But I think and for me, that's what I want to see is let's take a look and see what is there that we can work with Harnett County. And again, our towns would be a big part of that. It's not like it's just going to be the county. I mean, we've got Benson sitting right there on the line. I think they already have some dealings with Dunn, so I think there's already some connections there. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'll look to Commissioner Braswell. I know he's part of the subcommittee that we established to work with the towns, but I know he has a way better understanding of the utility system than I have.
The Neuse River is becoming ever more nutrient sensitive, and we've got to look outward, because we can't keep depending on the Neuse River forever. The surface water that our county thrives on now is either county water or Smithfield water, mostly, and they're both from the same surface water system. And I would like to see us schedule routine meetings with Harnett County, get the groundwork laid so that we can get staff to working on these questionable areas. I think our biggest obstacle to overcome is going to be response from downstream users in the Cape Fear. Because when we start putting
I can promise you that.
when we put wastewater back into the up to the Cape Fear, we're going to be affecting their water service source downstream, and so we're going to have to start working those kinks out now. And I think sooner better than later, if that's going to be our future, we need to start getting the groundwork laid for that to happen. And when I say groundwork, I mean find out what kind of resistance we're going to get from downstream. I know we can count on some, and to what extent, but also I'm seeing that the towns, I'm aware of one project, the town of Pine Level, is currently preparing a contract for bid to put in a groundwater well right out from Pine Level that is being built for the sole purpose of producing excess water that they can sell to the county. And I know that, as I mentioned yesterday, Princeton has, in 1978, when the water line was run for the county, everybody assumed that it was easier to buy the water from the county than it was to maintain the wells and the well houses and the operation of the well system. Well, now that may not be true. So we may need to take another look at some of these small municipalities. They may need to go back to groundwater systems and relieve some of the pressure. But as the chairman says, we have, through 5 or 6 sources, we have 18, I think it's 18.5 million that when we finish the projects we've approved. I may be wrong, Chandler, if I am, correct me, but I think we'll have 18.5 million gallons of surface water treated surface water that'll be available for use in the county. And if the regionalization is successful and Smithfield ever decides to join, they have just updated their plant, which is a more state-of-the-art, but a great process in the gravity filter system. Their water system is a good system. So there's a lot of things that need to happen. There's a lot of players that need to be involved, but I think that regionalization and the fact that a lot of the towns now are looking at, I know of 3 towns, instead of looking at expanding their treatment capacity beyond what's there now, they're looking at what the county can do for them. So we're going to have to step up to the plate and make sure, and Chandler's doing a great job on that we have sewer capacity on a continuing basis, and we don't use it all up and then we're out, and then we build more and then we use it all up and we're out. We need it continuously coming offline, project in design, project in construction, project ready to put out to the user. So I think we got a tremendous opportunity here to start and plan for the future. And although I think we have a great, Chandler's got our stuff laid out for, I think, the 2050, and she's got a pretty good plan in place. But we can always improve upon it, and we have to wonder, what if something happens in that plan? It is a plan, and there can be an outside adverse effect that could cause it to change. So if it does, this just gives us a little backup.
Let me understand on your concept of the Cape Fear. Is it y'all building a treatment facility on the Cape Fear, or buying bulk water, or?
How about yes to
all
all
of the above.
possibilities? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what
It's
the-
funny, this conversation by your public utility director 20 years ago, I remember saying, someday Johnston County will be coming to Harnett to talk about water.
We've been thinking about it a while.
I just remember that conversation. He says,
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I
Okay.
think we need to explore, like I said, that there may be,
Because I think
there
they
may be a
just
reason
took
that
their
it's not
plant
gonna
to
work.
52, I think. They're going to 52 million today, so I guess they may be looking for customers. Of course, they got Fort Bragg.
There's going to be a lot of obstacles, and it's going to be a high cost. But it gets back to what Fred said yesterday, what future do you choose?
So what I'm hearing is you need to have that, one, maximize what you have, what Mr. Braswell's saying, but then two, start a conversation with other
Right.
providers.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a short-term
No.
answer to it, but I think that's a.
What
that's
is
a
the
long-
state's perspective on it? I haven't really had an update. I think on
Yeah.
interbasin transfer.
Well, I know there was at least a proposal to increase it to 5, and for the reasons that Commissioner Braswell mentioned, that didn't go anywhere. It stayed at 2, but
Yeah.
Chandra may be, if she wants to come up and update us on what she knows about that, but I know that there's a lot of reasons it's staying at 2.
You want to add?
Regulators are probably going to be hesitant, but the
Give
but the
that go a lot.
legislators want to see regionalization.
Well, that is from our legislative delegation and across the state, I think regionalization is what they're pushing for.
They reward it when they're.
Yes,
spending money.
exactly.
This lady will enlighten us all.
So when we're talking about interbasin transfer, we've just completed a long-term water supply study, which we certainly evaluated.
You're still not on.
Green light?
Now?
Yes.
Okay. So we've just completed, of course, this long-term water supply study, which includes evaluation of some of these options and opportunities. And we've had discussions with some of our neighbors. The Cape Fear option, as far as we've gotten on that, is certainly, we have a contract with Harnett County to take 2.5 million gallons a day of water supply from them. We cannot take more than, on average, 2 million gallons a day without an interbasin transfer certificate. We can't take that from anywhere in the Cape Fear. So we've already maxed that out with Harnett County unless we go through an interbasin transfer process. Now, if we put more back into the Cape Fear, obviously we could balance it out some. The closest discharger in Johnston County to the Cape Fear is the town of Benson's wastewater treatment facility. They are looking at expanding their plant, and it's my understanding they had approached the state with that concept, and the state was not receptive to a discharge into the Cape Fear at this time. I feel like there's going to be, in the future, we're talking about nutrient sensitive, those same limits are going to be coming to the Cape Fear.
No doubt.
We're in a process right now, the state is looking at the nutrient loading criteria, looking at the modeling and the transport factors in the noose, and the next study will likely be in the Cape Fear. So there's certainly discussions that can continue to be had. I do know that one of the towns we supply water to, Fuquay, we are one of their water providers. They are working on a very large interbasin transfer certificate in order to purchase water from Sanford, and they're still in that legal process. Don't have approval yet, several years in, and there are some legal proceedings associated with that from downstream users. So they certainly don't want it taken out and not put back. But putting it back is, right now, I think, is a difficult situation with permitting through the state. And groundwater supplies are certainly an option and an opportunity. We have talked with the town of Pine Level about that opportunity. It was my understanding the last test well they had put in did have some radionuclides in it, which can be an issue for treatment. The county has done this in the past, put in 2 wells that we were hoping to utilize for groundwater supply, because we like groundwater. Groundwater is good. But we also had radionuclide issues. So there's an area of the county where we do have those types of issues, and that water supply, there are other treatment challenges when you start looking at that. But we hope Pine Level's next one is good, and they're able to get a good water supply there.
When's your capacity going to reach where you really need capacity?
So based on our capital improvements plan that I presented the other night, we are looking at our next lower new supply. We would like to have that online by 2029, 2030 would be when we would need that. Our current plant, as y'all know, is under, an expansion is underway, and it'll be expanded from 14 to 18 million gallons a day by the spring of 25 is when that should be back on, that one should be online.
Any other, while Chandra's up here, any other questions for her?
And I have had multiple discussions with Harnett County Utility Director about future water supply. We touch base from time to time, and I know there are some potential opportunities in the future. They're looking at potential development of new treatment plant in the future, and there may be some opportunity there. It's just that IBT issue we've got to work through.
And I know I think the DEQ's funding a study of the 421 corridor that runs down
Yes.
through into Harnett County that is taking place. So I don't know what information will come out, but I'm sure there'll be some useful information that comes out of that for Johnston County.
And we've been
as well.
interviewed as part of that study, which is, it sounds like could be some good opportunities there.
Have you seen the preliminary results of that test well in Pine Level?
Not a new one. The last one I heard about was a couple of years ago.
The one, my understanding is the last one that they drilled does not show the radar.
That's great. That'll be good.
I've heard discussions about towns delaying developments and that sort of thing. I take it they're waiting on things coming from the counties. What's the situation with that? For example, Pine Level.
So Pine Level, I think they did issue a moratorium related to sewer until additional capacity was available. And we have upsized the wastewater pump station, the regional station where we receive wastewater from the town. We've upsized that, and the force main from there that comes back to our facilities to give them additional capacity. We've completed the first phase. The next phase is under construction. We are actually meeting with them week after next, to talk a little bit more about that, talk details, and see if they're in a position where they can make changes on how they allocate capacity at this time.
Has there been any limiting factors that affect the time frame on the big development at Selma Eastfield?
Right now, they are, we have an agreement with them. It's a reimbursement agreement for them to construct some regional wastewater facilities that are needed. And it's under their control right now,
Okay.
them getting that completed.
So we're not that bottleneck anywhere?
That project is what we need, the regional wastewater pump station and force main associated with that project that will go through our Selma facility. We need that completed.
Okay.
And then we'll be upsizing. We have a project that will be part of our revenue bonds this year for upgrades at our Selma facility. So then once that wastewater gets there, we'll have some upsizing, and then we'll have that routed back to our new plant.
Mm-hmm.
The Buffalo Creek pump station behind the water plant in Smithfield, that line will be routed to our new plant, is that correct?
So the intent will be, when we upsize the Selma pump station, we will route wastewater that comes from from Pine Level and Selma. We will route it around the Buffalo Creek wastewater pump station and back to our new plant. And as you know, our new plant is still scheduled to come online this summer, and we have a design, we're waiting on final permitting in order to be able to bid an expansion to that plant, and that is the big project that'll be in the revenue bonds, the water and sewer revenue bonds this summer. The expansion to go from 4 to 8 million gallons a day at that plant, so 4 million gallons a day of capacity.
One question on the Benson, and it may be a detail that you don't know, but you probably do. Was that discharge, was that just an extension of the line to get into the Cape Fear? It wasn't a partnership with Dunn or Harnett County to?
It was my understanding it was just an extension of
Okay.
that line.
Okay.
But again, I was not involved in those conversations.
Yeah.
That's just the word that I had received
Okay.
back.
And
That
that's
they were
what I
not,
heard too.
they couldn't
Yeah.
pursue the Cape Fear at this time because of the conversation with the state.
Okay.
Seems like we need to talk to some of our state reps.
Well, I know they did all they could, but like I said, there was just enough other folks that didn't want to see that happen right now, so we'll see what comes up next session, if anything happens there. But any other comments on that? I appreciate what the staff is doing, because, I mean, it is when we talk about growth and the challenges that go with it, the water and sewer, and you mentioned, failing septic systems. I mean, at some point, that's going to happen. I don't know when that's going to be, but that'll be a whole another set of issues that we've got to deal with when that does happen.
We have to have a never-ending project of wastewater construction going on at all times. And it's not just the treatment, it's the transfer and everything involved in collection, transfer, and treatment. Forever expanding. You never get out of it. You're never done.
And the sewer cost is so overwhelming. Like somebody said, you make water climb a tree, but sewer don't work that way.
That's good.
Back to help me on the regionalization, internally in the county, are y'all at a point now of everybody sort of saying, let's agree to bring our assets to the table and sort of start a deeper dive into that concept?
So it's, and I think Commissioner Godwin mentioned that, yes. So I think that's all still on the table, because I think there are some towns who are interested in maintaining what's within their town. There's some towns that we already provide, we are the sewer provider for. So I think it's a mix. So we're getting close to having to make decisions on what it's going to be, because right now I think it's safe to say they're all over the place. Of some towns I think would just say, here you go, here's the keys, thank you very much, and others that would say, hey, we want some control, just like you'd mentioned. And for us, that same thing is, when you go somewhere else, you give up some control, and I think they have that same thing. And you mentioned annexation. That's one of the big things.
That's always a big factor.
How do they they want to control their growth, not have somebody else dictate sewer for their growth. So it's.
Are any of them on the LGC list with their utility systems?
I don't.
Micro might be.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But I would say I
just know
would be
that's
surprised if nobody was, but
Yeah.
I think that there probably are. I just don't know who they are specifically.
That seems to be pushing some municipalities. They just can't do it.
Yeah. Well,
As
I
an
think
enterprise fund.
that is the one of the big things is, like you said, water can climb a tree, and so I think, some of them have the water systems see that, but on the sewer side, it's a very expensive business to be in, and I think they're realizing that we can't, we can't be in the sewer business without charging more than people. We're going to charge so much, nobody's going to want to build in our town if we do that.
Plus the age.
And we can't afford it.
The age of their infrastructure is such a big factor, especially in the town.
One other thing we have to do is we have to continuously stay updated with what the latest concept of treatment is, and that's a forever changing world. The state keeps adding more mandates for things we've got to treat for, test for, and when you read the manuals, there's when you read what's done in a lot of foreign countries that don't have the environmental constraints that we have, they're actually doing some incineration and atomization, and it's amazing some of the processes they're using, but it may come to that for us at some point in time.
Butch, first off, as y'all know, sewer water is not my area of expertise. But I've just heard a couple of things that philosophically, I'm sitting here saying, did I really hear that? Number one, would we all agree that regionalization is something we want to do? I think that's what I hear. Is that correct? But then I hear on the other side from Dickie that towns say, well, we're not going to expand our facilities, and we're going to count on the county to provide our needs, and we're not going to work, and I hear with that, and we're not going to work with the county on regionalization because we want to control our destiny. So it's like, we want to control our destiny, but we're going to depend on the county to provide the capacity. That just doesn't sound right to me. I just think we ought to think through that analysis. Do we want to continue to beg the towns to help us get what we need, which is regionalization, and continue to be a source of sewer, or do we want to tell the towns, hey, don't count on us for any more sewer if we can't get to where we want to go?
I'll say this.
Maybe I got that wrong.
I think we are, as we continue to peel back the onion, I think that towns will see that you can't have both things, and there's some compromise in there. So I think that's what we're,
Well, that's what
and for us too, I mean, I say this at the meetings we're at, is don't assume that the county is 100% in on this, because we have to evaluate the same things, control and cost to our customers. So, we're at the table just like they are, listening to what the needs are and evaluating things, not that we're 100% in this thing. And so we are peeling back the onion and trying to figure out, okay, this, you can't have it both ways. You can't have the county provide it and you do this, and for us, we can't expect you to pitch in and we dictate everything to you that you do. And again, I should say governing body, because when I say county, we're the largest one now and have the most assets, but it could be an authority, it could be some other interlocal agreements. I mean, it's all open now, but you're spot on in
Well,
what you're
just to
hearing.
use a metaphor, as a parent, if you're a parent, your child does X, and you don't do it now, but we used to when I raised children. You spank them. And the child said, "What are you doing that for? You didn't tell me. You didn't tell me about that rule. Where'd that rule come from?" So if we're gonna tell the towns this is the rule, we need to tell them ahead of time, not after the fact.
The vast advantage, the largest advantage to being a regional system is when you need to do an improvement in your system, you're representing, in Johnston County, for instance, we had everybody all in some type of authority or whatever the structure was, then they're reacting to the needs of 250,000 people. But when a small town makes an application, they're reacting to the needs of 2,000 people. And so I think you get a more interest in solving the problem for 250,000 people than you're going to be for solving the problem for 2,000 people. So that's one of the vast advantages that we would have for regionalization. The other thing is there's so much duplication. I mean, there's places that, the towns and the counties, back-to-back pump stations. I mean, I can't specifically say, but I have seen in the past, and they've been doing a job of moving some of those around, but we don't need a pump station on every corner, because those pump stations may be the simplest answer for the day, but in the long term, it costs a lot of money to operate them and maintain them and update them, and so if we can, put less pump stations in, have a master transfer plan, and Chandler's done an excellent job on that. Then it's a win-win for everybody then.
And I will add too, for the subcommittee and with all the towns, that I think everyone is there in the spirit of cooperation and learning and kind of see what's going on. I don't think anybody has come in with preset, this is what's going to be for us or we're out. I think everybody's listening and learning throughout the whole thing, including myself in that. So I think we are. I mean, when you're in there, you get a feeling of collaboration, not of what's in any particular town or in the county's best interest is what we're going to do. It's like, how do we as a county, including the towns and for all the people, do what's best and for the future. But with that, anything else that we can move on to?
I might have beat that horse to death.
Yeah. But there are things in towns you can do to protect their interest. I mean, there's innovative things to do about capacity and guaranteeing them so much, and that eases their worry. Yeah. And I understand their.
I do too. I mean, having been on the council in Clayton, that was one of the things that we talked about. I think in '99 when I ran, I was talking about regionalization of utilities. And one of the things that our board was, and I was on the short end of that stick, is no, we want control. Yeah. And so that's what the town of Clayton has now. But even the town of Clayton is at the table as well, so they're looking at the long range and the future too. So
Mr. Chairman, I would add that if you recall, one of the impressive things about the beginning of those meetings is every town passed a resolution to participate, which I thought was a pretty strong gesture, showing the level of cooperation that every board in the county has seen the value in trying to come together and have these discussions. Didn't commit to anything more than that, but at least that was a great step in the right direction.
They were in the room, which is a big
They were
step.
willing to come in and sit and have the conversation, so that was a big accomplishment.
All right,
Anything else on the regional?
we'll let that horse limp off to live a little longer.
Got a few years there.
Yeah.
Trying to think what we turn to next. I don't know if there was anything else on facilities we wanted to touch upon. I mean, I know we've talked about the master plan and the CIP, but is there anything else facility-wise that, Mr. Braswell, anything facility-wise you want to? I'm giving you a
Yeah, we
hard
left a
time.
little bit for you.
I'm giving him a
to
hard time.
discuss today.
Yeah, let's start from the beginning then, and we'll go over it, okay?
Where'd my gavel go?
No, I'm good. You know, I just want to see us proceed. Okay, I think the council's finally put the final pieces together. So let's get started.
Execute.
Execute.
Yeah, and I would, and I don't know if we have anything else. Do we have anything? I know we did 3, but the one thing again, and I'll go back to for the staff, is there anything before we get out of here today that you feel like, okay, I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about? We need more clarification on any things we've talked about this morning, yesterday, or maybe some things that are on the list that we haven't discussed that y'all want to get some better direction from.
I would suggest, I heard a saying that I think would apply to us. Think big, start small, scale fast. Think big, start small, scale fast.
I think that's what we're going to do with regionalization also. That way, told me plan to work and then work the plan, so we're about ready to start execution now.
Great.
I think, Mr. Chairman, just speaking for me on the staff level, I think that I hear that once we finalize some property situation here soon, that we can go ahead and go out with a RFQ for a master plan. So for me, it's clear what the next step is on that part. If I've missed anything, please correct me.
Anybody else on the staff? Yeah, and I would say if you, when we get out of here, if there's something, and we meet, Monday?
Yep.
Yeah, Monday night, so we have an opportunity to catch us, and we can discuss that more if we need to, so. All right.
This is an election time. I'm not getting into politics, but I have been privy to a lot of the questions that are posed from press and different areas, chambers of commerce. They put together a candidates forum, and they pose questions that apparently are on the minds of citizens out there. And the things we went over yesterday, quite extensive from last year, and the things that we've accomplished this past year, it's almost hard to keep track of it. You know, we talk about the AAA bond rating, but there's so many other things we've accomplished this year, like that Workforce Development Center over there on 95 at 4 Oaks. Just a lot of things that we've planned on, and now we're in the process of working that plan. A lot of it was contingent on obtaining property, which had to be confidential for its own sake. But there's a whole lot of things on the table right now. And we might run out of things to say right now here, but we've accomplished a lot in the last year and got a lot out there in front of us.
I think we don't realize it until we see it in a format like this, and you say, man, we were working on that last year, and now it's behind us. And that's a good feeling.
I will give, and if we, I'll start with you yesterday, I put you on the spot yesterday, but are there any, and you kind of had a parting comment, but any parting comments, and we'll work our way around, and I'll go last again, and we'll let staff, and then I'll go last after them.
But, this gives the taxpayers, if they tune in and look, an opportunity to see that there are constraints that we have to work within, like, I hear a lot of times sometimes from some of our commissioners that we'd like to stop or control growth in Johnston County. Unfortunately, if a person comes to us and has legally purchased a tract of land, and they have drawn drawings that meet all of our ordinances and gone through all the private meetings and all, our hands are pretty well tied on what we can do. We're a desirable location, and the market controls what happens in Johnston County. We don't control it. We have very little control over what happens in this county as far as growth, because the growth comes to us. We've not set out any press releases, come to Johnston County or come build in Johnston County, but that seems to be what's happening, and we have to react to it. But we have to react to it within the confines of the law. We have to do what the ordinances and the legislative actions and all tell us we have to do. So I'm saying that the best thing we can do is, when we have the taxpayers' money, is to spend it as frugally as they would spend it if we allowed them to keep it. And when I say when we take that money from them, we have an obligation to do the smartest and most efficient thing with that money. And I truly believe that's what this board is doing. Every member on this board is dedicated to that. I truly believe that. And I'm proud to be a part of it.
As the most frugal member of this board, I would say kudos. Experience matters, that's all I got to say.
Yeah.
And it does.
I'm amazed sometimes when I hear the level of expertise that our staff has. I listen to Chandra and Rick and Jennifer and Chad and Martha and many, many others. We are so blessed and so fortunate to have a great group of people that are truly working for the citizens of this county. And I'm happy to be a part of this board, and we have accomplished a lot in the last few years. And it's great to come together and have a visionary planning session where we can have a lot of good discussion about where we're going from here. But I think it's been a good 2 days, and I appreciate you being here, the association. Thank you for doing that. And I look forward to the next 12 months. I think we'll have a lot of accomplishments in the next 12 and 24 months as well. Thank you.
No, sir, I'm good.
What? All right, we'll move on.
I
Mr.
guess
Stevens.
I can say ditto to what everybody else has said on the way around, and just, I agree with what Dickie said. Even for me, there was a learning curve coming in, of how I thought that infrastructure was handled and all of that. So it's been interesting to be a part of those decisions, and I really appreciate what Commissioner Smith said, which was think big, scale small, and start fast, and I think we're on the right path for that.
Let me make sure I get that right. Think big, start small, scale fast.
Thank you. That's what I meant.
As I mentioned yesterday, it's my last retreat. And so I'm going to probably pontificate a little bit. You don't get to choose your parents. You're just lucky if you get good parents. I was really lucky I got to come to Johnston County to raise a family. This county has just been absolutely a wonderful place to raise a family and a wonderful place to live. And it's the people, it's the staff. But I have twice had the opportunity to serve on this board. And when I started 4 years ago, or 3+ years ago, I said, I'm sure this board's going to be able to work together. There's just a lot of different opinions, a lot of different deals. I don't know if we're going to get there. And I just want to tell my brother and sister commissioners, I'm just so proud of the way that this board has evolved and been able to deal with the massive problems that you have in an organization as big as Johnston County. And I think each one of you are great public servants. I think each one of you put your best thoughts on the table, and then I think we've done a good job of coming to a consensus and coming to a solution and moving the ball on down the track. And I'm just really proud of that. Proud to be a part of this group, and just want you to know that.
All right. Chad, we'll continue on later. Ooh, yeah. Grab that microphone.
I just want to say more or less from a holistic point of view and then drill down with our employees. And, you know, we have about 1,500 full and part-time employees, and the work they do every day to carry out the mission of this board and our department heads. We have such a great working group every month when we meet, and everybody gets along and everybody works together, and it's a really good thing. I don't think a lot of counties have that, and so we're very lucky. It makes our job easier in management to have those people pulling on the same side of the road and carrying out the mission of this board, and starts with Rick and his leadership, and then the management team, and then everything else, you know, finance and everything, all the people that I see every day and have some dealings with, they're great, and they work hard for the citizens of Johnston County. And Rick and I have talked about it, how fortunate we've been in our career to work with such great board members, and this board is no exception. And we love to do what we do every day to carry out the mission of this board, because not only are you very smart, but you're just genuinely good people, and we really appreciate the leadership you give and the allowing us to do what we need to do to carry out the mission. So I appreciate it. I really am. I'm going to really miss Tony and Fred, but we're going to keep you on contract as long as we can, and we'll be around to try to get some more sound advice from you. And I appreciate everything y'all do for us. Thank you a lot.
Martha, I kind of feel you're like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain there. You don't say a lot, but you're back there doing your magic. So any comments?
I would just like to say that when I came to work for the county, I came from a different side, you know, working with the state, working with counties and municipalities, and I can echo the fact that not all units of government have such a great board and such a great relationship working with the board. I witnessed many that were not this situation, and also witnessed many that didn't have the staff and management team that we do. So, you know, it's just a pleasure to be a part of it.
All right. Jennifer?
Thank you. I appreciate the attention and dedication of the past day and a half. It's always, for me, a lot of fun to get together and talk about what future do you choose as the elected officials of Johnston County. And I agree with what has been said today, that we are in execution phase. And it's really exciting to be able to look at that list that's on the wall behind Chad and Martha, and look at what we've done and what we're working toward, and to have that direction from the board to allow us to execute that policy is extraordinarily helpful, and it is a pleasure to get up and come to work every day and to serve the citizens of Johnston County, and I thank this board for that opportunity. It's so much fun what we have to do every day, and it truly is an honor to serve our citizens and to think about the thinking big that has happened over the past several years. And of course, Johnston County has thought big for a really, really long time, but to be able to be a part of it in this role is really exciting, and to know that we've got a lot more work to do, and to have a board that provides staff the tools in their toolbox to be able to execute is very helpful. And I'm excited about what is to come, and we've got a lot of work to do. Martha and I are going to roll our sleeves up on Monday because we've got a list from which we need to work. So we thank you for that opportunity.
Rick?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words. I was thinking about, this is my 24th year in this role, and from the very beginning in 1999 to today, it's amazing the board that we've had. Chad said this earlier, but not all boards can disagree and then move on to the next phase. I think Amy and Neil probably seen that in different parts of the states. It's just amazing. Y'all can debate things out and come up with the best decision. And there's nothing personal. It's just, you move on to the next step, And and I appreciate this time. I always look forward to these work sessions because I have learned something from everybody on this board that's helped me either in my personal life or professionally. And I thank you for that. And I appreciate the vision you have and some of the direction that you've given us as next steps as staff to carry out what the policies of the board are. And I want to thank the Association of County Commissioners. They're awesome, and for what they do for us. And I appreciate what's happened here. And I think this was a great location for it today, right here in the chairman's backyard. So thank y'all.
All right, thanks, Rick. So I do want to start off with some thank yous for, first, the town of Clayton for providing us a facility to meet this year. And I appreciate the mayor coming this morning to spend a little bit of time with us. I do want to thank Rick and all the staff that are up here for being there, but also the ones who, Chandra Daniels sitting back there in the back who've been here this week. But a special thanks to Dana and Susie and Danielle for all the work that they've done, sitting back there and scrambling for figuring out what they're going to do with lunch today, since we're going to finish early, and all the other stuff they went in weeks and months ahead of time on that. And then for Adam and Ben for being there and making sure all the live stream is set up so that the folks who are watching from home or work or wherever they're traveling, that they could tune in and watch or catch up, and the press who's going to be watching and catching up for future articles. But thank you, and it's pretty seamless, it seems like, from the first year. Wasn't quite so seamless, but and I think we've got it figured out now. So thank you for that. I do want to say thank you to the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, and Amy and Neil today, the Amy's, and Amy yesterday. And even though Kevin could not be here, I know that he's been integral to being a part of this and putting it together and making sure things go well. So thank you to Kevin, and even in his absence. And also, as I'm leaning into the microphone and hearing my voice, I do want to thank Jim Arp for, again, a seamless job, and I think we're getting better at learning to lean into the microphone so we can all be heard. So, and thank you for your reminder of that when we get together. But I do want to thank this board for this hard work, and I agree that we don't always agree on everything, but I do like the fact that even when we disagree and we move on to the next issue, that next issue has nothing to do with the previous decision that was made, that it's every decision stands on its own, and we work together and work through all of those. And then a special thanks to Tony and Fred. I know this is the last one that they will attend, unless they just want to come and hang out with us at future ones. But thank you both for the wisdom and experience that you share with the board, and for the quotes that you provide that make us all think about things. But I do want to say, it is nice, again, to look over that list of things, and as we got through yesterday, I'm thinking, what are we going to talk about? Because there's something where we got to talk for 2 days for it to be meaningful, but I think the realization kind of hit for me yesterday is that we have set the goals and from a high level, the policies that we want to see, and we are seeing them executed. So there's really not a whole lot of need to sit here and rehash everything just for the sake of spending time here, that we recognize where we are, and we're on the path that we've decided we want to be on, and we're knocking things off the list. And I think next year when we get here, we'll be looking at another list that has even more check marks on it. And I think that's what the people of this county want to see, is us moving forward and getting things done, not talking about them forever. I hope when we get back next year, we'll have a consultant for the ordinances, and we have those knocked out. But I do want to thank everyone for preparing for this and for participation. And with that, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.